This year, Hanukkah is celebrated from December 8th, yesterday evening, to the 16th. It commemorates when Jews retook the temple 22 centuries ago. They only had enough oil to light a lamp for one day, but a great miracle happened there, and the oil burned for 8 days. And that is why the menorah is lit for 8 days. December 8th is also Bodhi Day, the day that Siddhartha Gautama reached enlightenment and became the Buddha. This spiritual enlightenment happened about 4 centuries before the physical lights of Hanukkah. After growing up rich and indulging himself, Buddha then renounced everything, but found that fasting and deprivation did not bring relief. He still craved the things he was denying himself. He sat beneath the Bodhi tree and became enlightened when he chose the middle path. In his first sermon after enlightenment, he spoke the 4 noble truths and the 8-fold path. From the Pali Canon. Now this, monks, is the noble truth of stress. Birth is stressful, aging is stressful, death is stressful, sorrow, lamentations, pain, distress, and despair are stressful. Association with the unbeloved is stressful, separation from the loved is stressful, not getting what is wanted is stressful. In short, the 5 clinging aggregates are stressful. And this, monks, is the noble truth of the origination of stress, the craving that makes for further becoming, accompanied by passion and delight, relishing now here, now there, craving for sensual pleasures, craving for becoming, craving for non-becoming. And this, monks, is the noble truth of the cessation of stress, the remainderless fading and cessation, renunciation, relinquishment, release, and letting go of that very craving. And this, monks, is the noble truth of the way of practice, leading to the cessation of stress. Precisely this noble 8-fold path: right view, right resolve, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. These Buddhist principles have parallels in Jewish literature. On suffering, we have these words from the 2nd chapter of Ecclesiastes. Therefore I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous to me, for all is vanity and vexation of the spirit. Yea, I hated all my labor which I had taken under the sun, because I should leave it to the man another. For what hath man of all his labor and the vexation of his heart, where he has labored under the sun, shall be after me? For all his days are sorrows, and all his travail grief. Yea, his heart taketh not rest in the night. This also is vanity. So both traditions recognize that there is much suffering in life. And even when you think you've gotten what you want, it turns out to be empty and vain. And the source of suffering is desire. Buddha said, this is the noble truth of the origination of stress: craving for sensual pleasure, craving for becoming, craving for non-becoming. The 23rd chapter of Proverbs reads, do not toil to acquire wealth, be wise enough to desist. When your eyes light upon it, it is gone, for suddenly it takes itself to wings. Let not your heart envy sinners. Be not among the wine bibbers or among the gluttonous eaters of meat, for the drunkard and the glutton will come to poverty. Both of these statements warn about the folly of desire. Buddha tells people to stop desiring, and the suffering will stop. And those who remember the 10th commandment have also heard this counsel. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. These passages are a warning against the holiday shopping season. Our economic system is based on coveting and desire. Economists call it consumer confidence. We put confidence in things. We hope they will make us happy. Judaism and Buddhism unmask this false promise. The 10th commandment on covetousness was kind of a turning point in my ministerial formation because I enjoyed what I had read about Buddhism, but I said, how can I preach a Buddhist sermon in a Christian church? And I said, well, I could do the whole sermon on thou shalt not covet, and I could introduce Buddhism to people, and they wouldn't even know it. But then I decided I would rather be in a tradition like Unitarian Universalism, where if I want to speak about Buddhism on a Sunday, I'll just speak about Buddhism. So Buddha continued with his instruction on how to stop coveting by citing the Eightfold Path. Right view, right resolve, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Right view for the Buddhism is to see things as they really are. Or in the words of the psalmist, I will lift my eyes into the hill, from whence cometh my help. My help comes from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. Right resolve means one should operate from pure motives. In the Psalm 24, he that hath clean hands and a pure heart, who has not lifted up his soul unto vanity, nor sworn deceitfully, he shall receive the blessing from the Lord, and righteousness from God of his salvation. Buddha said in the Pali Canon, and what is right speech? Abstaining from lying, from divisive speech, from abusive speech, from the idle chatter. This is called right speech. The 9th commandment says, you should not bear false witness against your neighbor. And Buddha continues, and what is right action? Abstaining from taking life, from stealing, and from illicit sex. This is called right action. Perhaps you are familiar with this passage from the Old Testament. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, and thou shalt not steal. Right livelihood. What do we do with our lives? The writer of Ecclesiastes, after declaring that all was vanity, concluded this: there is nothing better for a person than eat and to drink, and make their soul to enjoy good in their labor. This also I saw was from the hand of God. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get, a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. What profit hath he that worketh wherein he labors? I have seen the travail which God has given the sons of men to be exercised in. He has made everything beautiful in his time and set the world in their heart, so that no man can find the work of God from the beginning to end. I know there is no good in them but for men to rejoice and to do good in his life. And every man should eat and drink and enjoy the goods of all his labor. It is the gift of God. Vietnamese Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, "To practice right livelihood, you have to find a way of earning your living without transgressing your ideals of love and compassion. The way you support yourself can be an expression of your deepest self, or it can be a source of suffering for you and others. Our vocation can nourish our understanding and compassion or erode them. We should be awake to the consequences, far and near, of the way we earn our living." So much of our life is spent working. We must find a way to work for the good and to enjoy the good. The words of the Jewish writer are more paradoxical. To work for peace or to work for war, each may be good in their own time. To kill or to heal, each may be good in their own time. Sometimes we can be too attached even to what we think is good. And this is where we need to pray, meditate, or think about our intentions. What is the most good in the present moment? What causes the least harm? We do not always know what is right, but we can always try to do right. This leads us to right effort. And at this one, I'm going to read it slowly because the Buddha was very wordy. But it kind of makes sense when you take it all in. And what, monks, is right effort? There is a case where a monk generates desires, endeavors, activates persistence, and upholds and exerts his intent for the sake of the non-arising of evil, the unskillful qualities that have not yet arisen. So one was trying to stop evil. 2, he generates endeavors that activates persistence, upholds and exerts his intent for the sake of the abandonment of evil, unskillful qualities that have arisen. And so then trying to get rid of the evil that exists. 3, he generates desire, endeavors, and activates persistence, upholds and exerts his intent for the sake of arising skillful qualities that have not yet arisen. That is, trying to build some skills that are not yet there. He generates, desires, endeavors, activates, persistence, upholds, and exerts his intent for the maintenance, non-confusion, increase, plenitude, and development and culmination of skillful qualities that have arisen. And in the other words, if you're doing right already, keep on doing it. This monk is called right effort. My favorite Hebrew passage of right effort is in Micah 6:8. What does the Lord require of thee but to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with thy God? This is followed by the teachings of right mindfulness. This is to focus the body, feeling, and mind as they are to put away greed and the distress of the world. And a teaching of right meditation, which involves the detachment from everything. Up to this point, I have been talking about the parallels between Judaism and Buddhism. But when you get to right mindfulness and right meditation, is where these two traditions diverge. If you compare the Eightfold Path and the Ten Commandments, the Ten Commandments start with God and end with non-desiring. The Eightfold Path starts with coveting, non-desiring, and never quite get to God. That Buddhism is about detachment, and the Jewish tradition is about covenant, about attachment to God. The sense that the goodness comes because God has been first good to the people. Proverb 1 states that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Judaism is an obedience to a God outside of oneself that protects you or punishes you for your deeds. Hanukkah is a celebration of a time that God bestowed favor on Israel. And so other Jewish holidays such as Purim and Passover, a time when God saved them. Bodhi Day, in contrast, refers to an internal awakening. Buddhism, in general, does not focus on gods and goddesses. They exist in the writings and the legends, but they are not the primary point of the religion. When we search for meaning, we are usually called in two directions. Our external quest seeks an authority and a reality outside of ourselves. Seek the authority either in a God, in a science, or in some book or person. This is the extroverted path. The introverted path calls us inward to self-examination. And I have found in talking to people that whichever path they choose, as they follow these paths deeper and deeper, the two paths inevitably twist around each other, so that the inward path may lead one to treat others with compassion. And the external path, seeking God, also says humans are created in the image of God. Thus, this self-examination of one's own being becomes a theological quest. The personal, the introverted, becomes theological. So this week, Whether you are lighting a menorah, seeking a spark of self-enlightenment, or wondering about the physics of light itself and the energy that flows through each of us with every neuron and every synapse. Find a place under a tree, in front of a candle, a place of your own choosing, to pause and wonder. Wonder at what has brought you to this place, and express gratitude. Think of your hopes for the future, but also just to be still and know. To know yourself and how you might be connected to everything else. My sister recently wrote me an email after a fairly intense theological conversation, and she said something that I'm going to carry with me, and I share it with you. That as we get older, we understand more and know less. And I think of that in the stillness of this season, when there is so much around us, so many conflicts about whether it's the Christmas season or the holiday season or just what this is all about, and hearing that on the internet the Unitarians have invented Chalaka. I don't know whether this is the first year or whether this has been going on for years and I didn't know about it. There's this sense of trying to do something and trying to figure it all out. And I think sometimes to just bow to the mystery of everything and say, I don't know. But even though I don't know, I understand that it's important. And the people who celebrate these very traditions all over the world are important. And I might never know what is true in all the facts, but I can understand that this life, even in these coldest months where life seems to be dying, is important. And I'll light a candle. May we bless and be blessed.